Hello everyone, and welcome to a new episode of World Chess 85. Today we have a game played by Botvinnik, showing us how to exchange major pieces for the sake of keeping his opponent's king and constant pressure. Let's get on with the game.
White moves the queen's pawn to d4. Black develops the knight to f6. White plays the pawn to c4. Black fianchettos with pawn to g6. White develops the knight to c3. Black strikes the center with pawn to d5. White develops the bishop to f4. Black develops the bishop to g7. White plays the pawn to e3. Black castles with the king to g8. White develops the rook to c1. Black pushes pawn to c5. White captures with the pawn from c4 to c5. Black plays queen to a5. White advances pawn from c5 to d5. Black pushes pawn from d6 to d5. White places the queen on d2. Black captures with the knight from f6 to d5. White plays the bishop to c7. Black captures with queen to c7. White captures with knight from d5 to c7. Black recaptures with rook from d8 to d5. Notice Botvinnik exchanging major pieces to keep the king under pressure. White captures with queen from d2 to d5. Black develops bishop to e6. White retreats the queen to d2. Black develops the knight to c6. White brings the rook to d1. Black replies with rook to d8. White plays queen to c1. Black checks with queen to a5. Before we proceed, I would like to show you this useful site which I used myself. If you are searching for essays about a certain topic or you have an assignment that require many pages to hand in, this is the site for you, thesis.ai. You can get from 8 to 80 pages, get any type of output you want, and upload or import up to 200 papers to be cited. Check it out in the bio and tell us what you think. Now let's get on with the game. White plays rook to d2, black doubles with rook to d5. White develops knight to e2, black captures with rook from d5 to c5. White moves knight to c3, black captures bishop from g7 to c3. White recaptures with the pawn from b2 to c3. Black captures with rook from c5 to c3. White plays queen to b2, black shifts rook to a 3. White checks with queen to b5, black plays queen to c3. White moves queen to b2, black plays queen to c5. White plays queen to b1, black captures with bishop from e6 to a 2. White captures with rook from a 1 to a 2. Black checks with queen to a 5. White moves rook to d2. Black plays rook to a 1. Now the queen can be taken easily, coming close to an endgame with 2 rooks against 1 queen and 2 connected passed pawns. White develops bishop to d3. Black captures rook from a 1 to b1. White recaptures with bishop from d3 to b1. Black develops knight to e5. White centralizes king to e2. Black plays queen to b5. White plays bishop to d3. Black captures knight from e5 to d3. White recaptures with rook from d1 to d3. Black pushes pawn to a 5. White moves rook back to d1. Black plays queen to c4. White activates king to f3. Black pushes pawn to b5. White plays rook to d7. Black advances pawn to b4. White plays rook to a 7. Black pushes pawn to a 4. White plays rook to d8 check. Black moves king to g7. White plays rook to a 8. Black advances pawn from a 4 to a 3. White advances pawn to g3. Black plays queen to b5, and the game ends here. Thank you for watching. See you next time with another game.